Hi everyone, this is Mari Craig, and you're listening to the Small Steps to Wellness show, a podcast where we discuss how we can achieve more wellness in our lives one small step at a time. For the past 6 odd years, I've taken a special interest in nutrition and I've changed the diet of my family on its head. But as I've dived deeper into the world of nutrition, I have learned that health is so much more than just what we put on our plate. This is why on this podcast we will be talking nutrition, mental health, being in alignment, holistic health care, self care, raising children, and more. We will also be hearing stories of women's journeys to overcome trauma and what it has taught them on the way. When we share our stories, we realize we are not alone and that things can change for the better. I'm so glad to have you with me on this journey as I explore what health and wellness truly encompass. If you like what you're hearing, please consider rating the show with a 5-star rating and sharing it with your friends. It really makes a big difference. Now, on with today's show.
Right, so I'm back with Ben today, who I had on the podcast a while ago with Vicky. I can't even remember what we were talking about back then. Do you remember? Oh yeah, there was something
It,
about enjoying
y-
food and community
yeah,
and
it was like it was social eating. I think that was the main
yes.
thing. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I remember that now. I spoke to Vicky earlier today. I was just saying to you about the Christmas and how that is also very much social eating and how it's good to be able to enjoy it without the guilt and can be a bit of a minefield. So a really interesting topic. But today we're going to talk about something completely different and something that I find really interesting. Do you want to just introduce it?
Yeah. So this is a passion project, I guess, a charity project that I've been creating called Plants for Primates, which is about the sustainability of the food system. And I've narrowed it down purely to like primates and monkeys, just because I like them, no other reason. But it's actually about all biodiversity and agriculture being one of the major things that's causing deforestation. So it's been about trying to raise awareness and some money for that.
Well, I was going to ask you, like, I mean, I've just looked at the ebook. I bought it earlier, and it's really good. And I mean, they are really cute, so I can see why you like them. But like, have you traveled there, or what's your? Is it like,
Um,
how did it come
yeah,
about? I mean, they are very cute, so I can kind of see that side.
yeah. I haven't traveled there, but the so not sure where this sits ethically, but when my girlfriend was a student, she worked in a zoo, um, as part of a study, and I remember seeing going into the zoo, and I hadn't really had a huge amount of contact with animals, like we never really had a dog or anything like that, and I went into this zoo, and I remember seeing it. It's called a Goldie monkey. It's like a black monkey, and I remember seeing it and it looking at me, and I just really liked them. I don't know. I remember seeing its skull and seeing the sort of similarities of it to humans, and obviously close relatives, monkeys, primates, and I just liked them. But that was a big moment where I decided if I could go into something else biology related, it would probably be into like primate conservation or something like that. Um, and then I was sort of, when I was studying sustainable diets, I was kind of looking for a way, well, how can I link this back to the monkeys? And this is kind of what I came up with.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Having looked at the ebook, um, they are not being treated very well, should I say? Where in the world are we looking, by the way, just so it's clear to anyone listening?
Um, so yeah, I'll just reiterate again, it's not just primates, it's all biodiversity, so
Yeah.
insects, plant life, fungi. So New World monkeys, this ebook focus exclusively on, so that's South America largely and parts of Central America. So we're looking at Brazil, which is obviously host to a huge amount of the Amazon. We're looking at Peru, Colombia, Chile, Argentina, Bolivia, just pretty much anywhere in South America where these monkeys live.
And it's important what you're saying. It's about not just the monkeys, but by I guess looking after them, you will in turn look after
Absolutely, yeah.
everyone else, should I say, right? So it's all connected. This is where I find it gets so tricky because I'm reading this ebook and I'm just thinking it's fantastic, but also, oh my gosh, it's a challenge where like
Yeah.
the problem is so have you ever watched The Good Show? I think I asked every person I talked to about this. No, not The Good Show, The Good Place.
No,
No,
I haven't seen
worth
that one.
watching. But basically, I think it's on Netflix. They're trying to, these people are dying, and they're trying to get into the good place instead of the bad place. And then they think like the bad place people have fiddled with the system so that no one can get into the good place, i.e. heaven, right? But then they realize that it's not being fiddled with. It's just that it's impossible to make decisions that are purely good, because along the line somebody is suffering as a result of the choices you make. And I think it can, I as I said, I really like what I'm reading so far in the ebook, but at the same time I'm like, oh my gosh, where do I even begin? And you can feel a bit overwhelming, can't it?
Yeah, so I don't know how far you are through the ebook, but in the end I talk about, there's a little section called doing less harm individually, and it's basically saying not about being perfect and trying to appreciate how complex the issue is. And of course, it's not just your choices as a consumer. There's other things economically, politically, socially going on that is much harder for you as an individual to control. But it's about, nobody's perfect. Not even a vegan food system does no harm to, you're feeding 7 billion people. A food system intrinsically does cause some level of harm to something somewhere. So it's about not being perfect, but how can you as an individual do less harm individually? And that's really the focus on that. And I think that's to just try and bring it back down to earth a little bit.
Yeah, exactly, because it can seem like a big task, can't it? But listen, so how are these primates, how are they suffering, or what is it? I'm assuming it's man-made, so to speak, that we're responsible. What is happening in the Amazon that is causing them to, well, they're near extinct, some of them, aren't they?
Yes. On that point about the extinction, a great resource to look at that if you're interested in any of the species that are endangered by agriculture is to look at the IUCN, International Union for Conservation of Nature, red list. And you can actually apply filters on that red list to like agriculture, then livestock, farming and cattle. So it actually narrows down the species that are being directly affected by agriculture. So if you're interested in that, that's a good place to start.
Excellent.
But the Amazon, it's being cut down largely due to livestock farming and cattle ranching, and then the production of soybeans, most of which goes into livestock feeds. So that's one of the major issues, particularly in places like Brazil. But then you also have other commodities too, because I think often meat gets targeted in the media, and it is a huge problem. But it's also coffee causes deforestation, cacao, cocoa, sugarcane does. So there are these other commodities too, and obviously in other areas of the world, in Asia, palm oil is a big one for orangutans, gibbons, siamangs, things like that. So so there's some of the big commodities that are causing harm.
And the soy, because you would talk in the book, you talk about you can eat tofu and edamame beans. It's all coming from soy, but you were saying that this soy produced here, it goes to livestock. And do you know if any of this soy is used for livestock in Europe? Because I'm thinking, as long as you don't eat livestock from South America, are you safe? Probably not, huh?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Probably should have researched that, but I don't know. I'm not sure, but yeah, I doubt all the produce produced somewhere exclusively goes to one place. Some of it's going to be exported, but yeah, obviously some of the soy that is produced there is consumed by humans too, but it's just the majority of it goes into livestock feeds.
Yeah, exactly. So you're not just cutting down the rainforest for cattle to graze there, but you're also cutting it down to produce soy for them to eat. So it's like a double whammy, really, isn't it?
Sure.
So I mean, this is like, I love my chocolate. I love my coffee. I have 1 cup a day, sometimes 2. but I tend to have 1 cup a day.
Yeah. I love the coffee as well.
Yeah. So should we feel guilty about that, or what's the
Well, I'm not sure how much guilt helps. It's just more about acknowledging the complexity of the problem, because it's taken a sort of wider view of a sustainable diet. A sustainable diet is one that is socially feasible, socially acceptable. So to just take away coffee from everyone, that's not really social, because coffee is a very, very social thing and people enjoy it, and there's communities built around coffee and things like that. So no, maybe not guilty, but there are certain things that are quite interesting that you could explore. Like I recently, not related to primates, but well, kind of, but I had like a bird-friendly coffee. So it's often advertised as sustainable coffee. So one of the things about unsustainable coffee practicing is full sun coffee. So they just wipe out a huge area of rainforest and then they grow coffee fully exposed to the sun. But there's other ways, like shade farming, it's called, where they create canopies within the coffee, and wildlife can actually live within those canopies. So like birds can, so it's bird friendly or it's primate friendly. So there are certain things, certain farming methods that you can put your finances towards too. But again, these sort of coffees that are being grown, especially like specialty coffees from Colombia or something like that, these are often smallholder farming communities that are producing this coffee. So that's not necessarily something you want to boycott so they don't have an income, you know?
Yeah, this is so important what you're saying, because that would be the obvious thing, isn't it? None of us should eat, meat from there, and none of us should, stop drinking coffee or don't have chocolate. But actually, whole communities rely on this income. They rely on it to literally survive. So there has to be a middle ground somewhere, right?
Sure, and that's an interesting thing about palm oil, is that palm oil as a plant is actually a highly productive crop. So it's in terms of how much yield you get and how much profit you can get out of a palm oil crop, it's actually quite high. Like it's a good crop in comparison to like other seed oils. So when people say, "But I boycott palm oil," that's not necessarily what you want to do, because the farmers, they have to produce something, these smallholding farming communities. So you don't want them to stop using palm oil and then have to use up more land growing a different seed oil to get the same yield, to make the same profits. So a boycott might not necessarily be the best option. And again, we say this, but it's even more complex than that, because it's difficult to identify where the smallholder farming communities lie, and where it's like industrial agriculture, like who's farming it. Well, where's the palm oil going?
Yeah. There was a big thing in Norway a few years back, where basically palm oil was targeted, and now any product that used to have palm oil is now very proudly writing "no palm oil, no palm oil." With your nutritionist hat on, how does palm oil fare compared to, let's say, sunflower or rapeseed? Do you know?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. And because when people say seed oils, I you immediately think of omega-6 and how much that's being added to the diet. I'm not 100% sure of the palm oil content, no, the omega-6 content in palm oil, how that compares. No.
Because it's interesting if you then saying no palm oil, but A, in your diet, what are you replacing it with? And B, for the farmers, are they actually making something that is, better or worse for us?
What I would say is that obviously when you look at something like rapeseed oil, you see that being added to like ready meals and things like that, processed food. A lot of the palm oil that we consume through the diet is in unhealthy products. So it's things like pastries and biscuits and crisps. Not things that you want to overindulge in and eat loads of. So it's not that the palm oil would be going towards something that's really healthy and good for us anyway. It's not really being used. It's being used for flavor and fat in sort of ultra processed convenient food, which is one of the tips that I'd give if you want to help. Like if you don't want to like go do anything radical or be vegan or like to do anything like that, just cut out processed food. You've got like a double wang. The biggest purchasers of meat beef, pork, and chicken are fast food corporations. They're also huge producers of processed food, and then all of the supermarket processed food too. If you just cut out processed food, like as far as I'm concerned, as an individual, that's enough on your part, you know.
And you've done so much for your health. Let's just to clarify that ultra processed, not processed, but you've done so much for your health. If you can, I don't think anyone can cut it out, maybe, but cut it down,
Sure.
cut down.
Yeah.
Yeah. You've done
Yeah.
so much for your health, then, haven't you? Just
Yeah.
like for inflammation. Well, we're not here to talk. We're not here to talk about the primers and the conservation of it, but I think it's all linked, isn't it? I was saying to you before before we hit record that salmon is something that is huge in Norway, where I'm from, and we're a massive exporter of salmon. And I didn't know this, but they didn't used to have salmon as sushi in Japan until like Innovation Norway came along and introduced this amazing fish to them. And now salmon, as you know, part of a sushi is like the obvious choice, isn't it? But a lot of those farms are feeding their salmon, you know, as far as I know, crap, and a lot of it, I think, I'm not good, don't quote me, soy from potentially areas that you shouldn't be getting its soy from. So I think sometimes also and this is where it becomes a bit tricky, because you have to be such a detective sometimes to really investigate where is my food coming from, and that I think can seem a bit overwhelming to people. Do you have any like any certifications you always look at, or anything where you think, okay, I'll buy that chocolate over that chocolate? Or you were saying earlier you're vegetarian, so has that anything to do with your interest in conservation, or like what do you look at?
Yeah, it's a good question, because there's obviously there are lots of certification bodies, and none of them are perfect. So RSPO, Roundtable for Sustainable Palm Oil, that's quite a popular one that people look for. Not perfect, but there's also Rainforest Alliance, there's Leaf. These are certifications. Again, it's advertised a lot. Like I was talking about the bird-friendly coffee, it's almost like a marketing point in some sense, because there is an audience for sustainable products. I was actually looking at, when I was training in sustainable diets, I watched a live debate. I forgot the guy's name, but he was a very prominent sort of soil scientist, and into climate change and sustainable diets and things like that. And I remember he ended his PowerPoint after doing all of this information, this detailed information about agriculture. He ended it saying something like, you know, do the world a favor, or just eat more veg. And that was it. Eat more veg. And as complex and huge as the issue is, and it is complex and there's so many layers to it, really that it can be that simple. Just eat more veg. So I quite like that, and that stayed with me.
Yeah.
So you can obviously go around looking for certifications and stuff, but honestly, just filling your diet with more plant-based foods is going to be one of the best things you can do.
Yeah.
For the environment.
Yeah, exactly, for you and for the environment, for everyone, really. So
yeah.
So some practical tips then. Where would you start? So we've talked about cutting out ultra processed foods. So that will be a lot of your ready meals, a lot of the things actually sometimes that we deem to be healthy. I think if you look at some of the cereal bars you find in the shops, some of biscuits, not biscuits, but like even some oat cakes, I think you find in shops, they're all deemed to be really healthy. But when you look at the ingredients, some of them can be highly, processed. Some of them vegan meat replacements, highly processed, even if it's got no meat in it. So those are some sort of obvious things. But then, eat more veg. So what is a practical tip then for, let's use me as an example. Then I eat meat and fish and everything. So where do I begin?
To eat more veg, to have a sustainable diet. What do you mean?
Yeah. All of it. Where do I begin? If I think, do you know what, this has impacted me emotionally, I want to do something. Where do I begin? I don't want to be part of the problem. I want to be part of the solution. you know, chopping down rainforest, the Amazon rainforest is awful, not just for primates, but imagine the species that we haven't yet discovered, you know, for so many things. And you talk about in the ebook as well that, you know, ruining nature, that we are literally getting so much, you know, medication from. A lot of these things have been found, cures for illnesses and treatments have been found in nature. So why are we ruining it? We're supposed to play on the same team. So where can I begin?
Sure. Well,
easy question.
More plants, less animals. So you can try diversifying your diet. Again, in the ebook, all right, how many different types of foods can you include in your shopping basket? So how many different types of plant-based foods, I would say, can you include? Whole
Why is that
grains.
important?
Diversifying, well, not only will it encourage you to eat more plant-based foods, if you're diversifying, you have lots of different types of fruits and vegetables, but also having a more diverse range of foods can remove strain off one particular resource.
So if I want to drink 10 cups of coffee a day, maybe if I have a couple of them as tea instead. I mean, it sounds really insane, but like, you know, diversifying by not just relying on one thing, or not just eating my avocados, not just eating my bananas. How about eating local produced foods?
Absolutely, locally. So one of the things you might do is, if you know that you're eating lots of meat in fast food, but you don't want to give up meat, you know, maybe don't go to fast food restaurants and look for a local butcher or a local farmer's market. Not only is that good for your local community, but obviously that's going to be better because you know where the meat is being grown. But one of the issues with that is that you don't know what the animals, the cows or whatever, are being fed, and is that soybean from Brazil again? You know, so really talking to farmers, to your local farmers about that, if you're interested in it, could be a thing.
The interesting what you said about what they've been fed, because I guess not just for the Amazon rainforest, but if that cattle, let's say, has been fed a lot of grains, then the nutritional value of that meat is potentially not as good as it could be if it was grass fed, right?
Sure.
So there's so it goes really hand in hand, doesn't it? My health and the health of nature, which is kind of cool. So you can kind of kill a couple of birds, which you shouldn't do with one stone.
Yeah, so that's actually how it opened it, which is one of the one of the ways that I got into this is that I was looking at the medical model of health and disease, and you know, that's very sort of reductionistic, and it's based on sort of, there's a problem or a pathology in the individual or within the system of the individual. And then I discovered what's called a biopsychosocial model, which is where health is related to not just the biology of the person, but their psychology, and then the social, political circumstance that they find themselves in, and the economic circumstance. And I thought that was a more accurate depiction of what health is. But then I discovered the idea of One Health, which is even further than that, which isn't just biopsychosocial. It's actually related to animals, and it's related to nature, and it's a whole health of the planet. So you're saying that, yeah, it does really go hand in hand, that to be healthy as a human being, or particularly when you look at populations of people, you need the rainforest to be healthy, you need the animals that you eat to be healthy, so all interlinks. And that's how I open the ebook, because I think that's such an important idea.
Yeah, it's really important. I was listening to a conversation, and I can't remember who he had it with, but Dr. Zach Bush is an American doctor, and he is talking about this also, like, why are we all of a sudden thinking that we're standing outside nature? We have to fight all these pathogens. We have to fight all these, you know, things, instead of playing on the same team as everything. We're all part of the same system, of the same world, of, you should say, this One Health. So instead of thinking that we're above everything, we've got to kill everything with antibacterial sprays and all the rest of it, we should kind of, you know, look to live a little bit more in harmony.
Sure. And also acknowledging that the body that you live in, that's been created, it was created by nature. It was evolution. Everything from the senses to detect ripe fruit with vision, to the stress apparatus, the fight, flight, freeze response, the dexterity of the hands and how that relates to your brain, all of these things were created by nature, and so you're just inseparable from it.
Yeah.
So
Just
yeah, and I
thinking that
think
we're above, and then like we can just master everything and be these sort of overlords of everything is kind of arrogant as well, isn't it?
Sure, like you have taste buds to detect salt, to detect sugar, and that's an evolutionary adaptation. It's nothing more than that, and that's purely from nature. So you are already integrated in it, even if you perceive yourself as something other.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the sooner we realize that, the sooner we can make sort of small adjustments. Because I think you're saying it as well, it's not all about making all the changes, which I mentioned before can seem overwhelming. It's about seeing, okay, what can I do, as one individual that makes a difference. Obviously, you can buy this ebook because then some of the money, all the money, all the profits,
all the money, all the profits,
goes to conservation work. But let's say then that I want to, let's put your nutritionist hat back on again. If I want to stop then eating meat, what are some of the considerations that I have to be aware of nutritionally?
Sure, and it just so happens there is a section on that in the ebook. But
how convenient.
You obviously want to look at amino acid profiles. So cutting out what could be a major protein source, you want to replace that with plant-based proteins, and obviously the amino acids complement each other. So you're looking at beans and rice. If you eat a wide range of plant-based proteins, quinoa, peas, spinach, broccoli, again, tofu and soy, these are all great sources of protein. As you're eating more less meat, if you want to replace it. Obviously, if you're vegetarian, you might be eating like yogurt, you might be eating eggs or something like that. They're great protein sources too. And then B12 is an essential one. I mean, that's more if you're going completely vegan. That's an issue. If you're eating eggs and you're eating cheese and things like that, you probably don't have to worry about these things as much. But if you're going completely vegan, B12 is a big consideration. I know there's like nutritional yeast and things like that, or maybe Marmite has B12 in, like fortified cereals and things like that. But really, that's probably a supplement that you need to take to get quality B12. So yeah, they're two major considerations that often come up.
Yeah. I was just thinking omega-3, but we're not talking fish so much here, unless you want to go down the route of also cutting out any farmed fish because you're concerned that they might be fed let's say call it rainforest food. And salmon is, I guess, the most well-known source of omega-3 that we get through our diet. So then you have to also look at how to replace that, right?
Yeah. I think the best way to do that, if you weren't eating any, is algae oil. So algae oil supplementation, or if you've got like an algae oil syrup and you can add that to smoothies or something like that, that contains DHA and EPA. There's obviously the plant-based ALA, and some of that's converted, but there's always controversy about how much of it's converted, how much of it's utilized. That's found in like flaxseed, things like that. I don't know about I've heard some people arguing, well, you just need to eat ALA and some of it gets converted. And I've heard lots of people say the complete opposite to that. So I don't really know. If in doubt, just have some algae oil, really.
Yeah, exactly. Because then you get it straight away. But I read somewhere, and I don't know if this, how true it is, but somebody who's already vegan is actually more adapted to convert ALA to EPA and DHA in the body, versus somebody who is a carnivore or omnivore, should I say, is less able to do it. But maybe that's just because our body is that clever that it adapts. But I don't know.
Yeah, maybe that is the case.
Yeah, I mean, we are kind of incredible beings, so who knows? But yeah, algae oil. I've supplemented with an an omega for 6 years now that is based on algae. It's a capsule, so I just swallow it, and my kids take it as well. They used to, in fact, just chew it when they were little, which it's not got the fishy burps, so that's quite good. But I still thought it was a bit yucky. But they've been taking that as well, so that's quite good, because I think it's one of those things, if you want to make changes, and you say this in the ebook, I think that you need to consider these things, because it's great to want to make a difference and to want to be part of the solution rather than the problem, but you also have your own health to think about. That really needs to be at the forefront, right? Because doing things to the detriment of your own health can't be good either.
Yeah, again, that's not what a sustainable diet is.
Exactly.
And yeah, I mean that in the environmental sense. It has to be something that positively impacts everybody for it to be sustainable. And I know I don't mean that as kind of a blanket statement. Obviously, there's going to be aspects that don't work for everybody, but yeah, it is. That's what a sustainable diet is. It's something you can stick to, and that's good for you and the planet and farming communities and animals and whatever else.
Yeah, exactly. So again, it's a holistic way of looking at it, isn't it? Is this something that you're gonna? So I find it fascinating that you've found monkeys cute and that you've just gone to create this fantastic. But it's a fantastic resource, I think, and I'm going to show it to my kids and share it with them and see sort of what they can think about, because I think it's a great educational tool as well. Because I think we all like go to, I mean, maybe not all of us, but we live really, really close to a big zoo, Whipsnade, which is one of the better ones I've been to. There's loads of space for the animals, and the elephants go out for walks every day, and they're great with their conservation work, as far as I've understood. But we go there and we kind of read and go, oh, these are close to extinction, and we go, oh, that's so sad. But actually, you know, we're part of that problem, so let's see what we can practically do to be part of the solution. That's why I think that ebook is so valuable, because you can you can start to be part of the solution. But what if somebody listening to this, they think, oh gosh, I want to do something more, I want to help out more, what can I do? Where would you say they can start?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, there's lots of charities that are obviously working towards it as something simple. You could donate money. The charity that the ebook supports is an American charity called Amazon Conservation, so that's a good thing. And let me think if I can get this right. They've got like a donation page, and it says $25 can plant 20 trees in the Amazon. So this is where all of the money goes, and it's something like $100 can protect 50 acres of Peruvian Amazon for 1 year. So the money, even though $25 doesn't seem like a great amount for 20 trees, I think that money goes quite a long way, considering 20 trees in the Amazon can be. So there are donations that you can make. I think
Do you know
that's
if
a good
the
idea.
British government? Do you know if the British government is hot on looking after the Amazon forest? Because remember, I mean, a lot of the damage that's done to the planet is because of the insane demands from the Western world of, well, we like our coffee, we like our chocolate, and so on.
Sure.
So do you know what they're doing? If they're supporting, like,
well, the big movement, I think, is the United Nations, the UN, the 17 Sustainable Development Goals that were meant to meet these targets by 2030, but I don't think we are going to be meeting those targets. That's the main big push, I guess, that I've seen, and how all of those goals interrelate with each other. There's always sort of conservation's at the heart of a lot of what they're doing, and loads of different governments and countries are involved in that. Whether they're acting out the plan to the best of the ability or whatever is obviously a whole different conversation, but yeah.
That remains to be seen, hey?
Yes, maybe they'll turn it around in the last 2 years or something, but I don't know.
I don't think either of us sound too hopeful, right?
Yeah.
But I think you touched upon some really interesting things here, Ben, about how we're all part of We can all be part of the solution, and we need to be looking at, let's not turn this into another thing, another should, because I think that creates so much overwhelm and pressure on us. But here is an opportunity to understand that we are a piece of the puzzle in this big thing called One Health, and that we have a role to play, and let's make it a positive one as much as we can.
Yeah, and for some people, can I say, how can you do less harm individually?
Yeah.
For some people, that might be, right, I'm just gonna go completely vegan, and that's what I'm gonna do, only local organic produce. But for some people, it might be, I'm gonna try and eat a plant-based meal 1 day per week, or instead of drinking 10 cups of coffee, I'm gonna have 5, or that sort of thing, or I'm going to start cooking from scratch with fresh produce a little bit more, or eat more vegetables.
Yeah.
So that it's really kind of, I think you've got to meet people where they are, because often it's quite polarizing what you should eat, and there's lots of ethical issues, and people get angry online and cause arguments and things. I think that just switches people off, though, because nobody likes being shouted at.
No.
I just think you've got to meet people where they are. I think it's way more productive to find even a small solution in your own life than have like a huge radical thing imposed on you by somebody else. So that's what I try and encourage in people. Just, I'm sure you could do something just today that can have a positive impact. And if we all do it, and we pass on the message, then we could create something really positive, I think.
Yeah, great. I love that. Let's end on that. And I'm going to add some things in the show notes that we've been doing for a few years as well. I really love Riverford. I get my fruit and veg box from Riverford every week, and I like their work. Do you know, I'm going to shout them out here anyway. I've been for a number of years using meat box from Field and Flower. They're down in Somerset, and they're hot on also transparency and raising their livestock really in a really, really sustainable way. So love them. But another thing that I've been doing is just I like to eat meat and fish, and I don't eat it into every meal. I have plant-based meals every so often, but I try to for example, I went from buying just chicken fillets to buying a whole chicken, using everything of the animal, then making stock of it and turning that into veg soup with chicken stock, and just making everything go further. And I think that's been a big thing for me anyway as well. And reducing the amount I have at every meal, and just upping my vegetables and adding more pulses and beans to my diet instead, to kind of make up for it. So have really good quality meat, but just have less of it.
Sure, absolutely. That's less but good quality. That's a good thing to do, I'd say. I also say, like, unrelated to diet and nutrition, if you're not sure about it, like just go outdoors as well. Go into nature, just find some wildlife, find some plants, try and identify some fungus, or just just do something in nature to try and get a bit more connected to it, and then maybe you'll be inspired to make a different change if actually you quite like it, because it is very peaceful and it does have a good impact on your mental and physical health. So if there's something that you don't really want to do anything dietary related, I think just getting out into a natural space, having a walk, hiking a mountain, doing whatever you want, that's also a really positive thing too, that I think should be encouraged.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much, Ben, for doing this. I'm going to post a link to the ebook in the show notes as well. I just loved what I've seen, so far. And as I said, I'm going to see if I can get my printer to work and print it out. Not very sustainable, but that way my kids can read it without being on a screen. So that's always a positive in my book. And maybe we can link to a couple of the organizations you mentioned as well, because I think I like to kind of, especially when I eat my chocolate, when I buy my chocolate, I'd like to know that at least what I'm buying is kind of produced in a sustainable way. And I'm sure there'll be many agreeing with that. So maybe we can also share some links to, where you can look up, etc. Because I think that it feels empowering to know that actually I've looked this up. I know a little bit more about what I'm doing. I think if we can, instead of just being this consumer that doesn't even know where to begin, so they don't begin anywhere, just having a few things that you can look at and go, oh yeah, well that chocolate, that looks good. Okay, I turn around. Oh yeah, it's got that, brilliant. My new favorite brand, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a good idea.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ben, for being on. And
yeah, thank you for having me.
Oh, anytime. I'll speak to you soon. Bye.
All right, see you later.
You've been listening to the Small Steps to Wellness show with Mari Craig. I am passionate about helping mums get their energy back through simple nutritional changes, because we know that if mummy is happy, the family is happy. If you would like to connect with me, you can find me on Instagram under @smallstepstowellness, or visit my website, smallstepstowellness.info. Speak to you soon.